How's it going, everyone? It's Johnny Beard here, and welcome to another episode of the Streamer Stories podcast. And my guest today is the wonderful EricaNewGirl. Here she is.
Hello. Hi.
How are you doing? You doing all right?
I'm doing great. It's a wonderful day.
Excellent, excellent. Oh, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it. So before we go into Streamer Stories, obviously, do you want to tell us a bit about yourself in terms of your streamer? So where do you stream? Where can we find you?
Yeah. My name is EricaNewGirl on Twitch. I'm a queer trans woman, she, her pronouns. And it's a bit of an adult stream where I play a variety of things, everything from horror to some retro games. I'm becoming more known, though, for my speedrunning of Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. And we can be lewd but not rude, so if you come on by and be rude, we will give you some booze. So we have a good time. As long as you treat others in kind, then you'll have probably some laughter and some hilarious moments.
100%. Your humour I love your humour. It's brilliant. But I'm sure we'll get to that in a bit. But brilliant. So let's talk about the beginning there. So what was it? What were your first memories of video games growing up, basically?
Yeah, basically, I remember very young, maybe 3 or 4 years old. My dad brought home a Nintendo NES with, I think it was Mario Brothers 3, a couple of the first Ninja Turtle games, and Double Dragon 3. Oh. These were like these were the core of my formative years in gaming, where me and my dad every night after supper would play video games for like an hour every day. Whether it was beating the Mario games or the Ninja Turtle games, Double Dragon 3, we got to the final boss fight every single night and could not beat her ever. It actually took me until age 16 with my best friend to beat that game.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, that was kind of like the beginning. And then I also watching my dad play a lot of video games. Like the first Ninja Turtles game was only for one player, so I'd watch him play and he could blow through that game real fast, so it was fun to watch.
Brilliant, man. Wow, Double Dragon. It's one of those games, isn't it? I think like if you weren't there playing it, it's a forgotten gem really nowadays. It's a shame. But yeah. I mean, so did you play multiple Double Dragon games, or was that was the one that you constantly played?
For some reason, Double Dragon 3 was the only one I played, and I do feel some validation from retro streamers today when I bring up, oh, you know what, the one game that like always got me as a kid was Double Dragon 3, and they're like, everyone I've talked to about it is like, yeah, the difficulty rating on just that final boss fight, it's like the whole game is easy as can be, and then you get to that final boss fight, and for whatever reason, just the difficulty spikes right up, and it's a very difficult boss.
Oh, but fair play. You beat it. It's age 16.
I did.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm. So, it took me like 10 years to do it.
So, Mario. So you played the Mario games. Did you beat those?
Yeah. Mario 1 and 3 were kind of... I didn't beat Mario 3 until just recently when I got it on my Switch. So that one I didn't beat as a kid, but Mario 1, that was kind of like my introduction to speedrunning, actually. It's like whenever I was sick home from school, I would put on the first Mario game and just try to beat it over and over again as fast as possible. You know, this is before I knew speedrunning even existed as like an actual thing, but I just loved trying to run through that game, basically doing it any percent where you're like, I'm using the warp tunnels, I'm doing everything just to beat it as fast as possible. That was like a huge joy of mine growing up.
Fair play. That's awesome. So that was the NES. So where did you go from there? Was it SNES or was it different direction?
I think my next leap would be probably a Game Boy. I had a Game Boy for a little bit. It was like I think I had the first 3 Mortal Kombats on Game Boy. Oh, wow. But Metroid 2 was my main Game Boy game. I played Metroid 2 over and over again on that Game Boy. The SNES I didn't really get until my teenage years. Somehow a friend like gave me a SNES that they like just didn't want anymore. Okay. And so I played a little bit. Aladdin, I remember playing a ton of. I can't really remember what other. I feel like there's a bunch of titles on the SNES that I never really got to play. And then someone stole my SNES from me. They literally like knocked on my door. I wasn't home. My mom let them in because she thought it was one of my friends, and he just like took it.
What?
So I never found out where that went.
No, that's
so the SNES was in and out of my life real fast.
Oh man. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh man.
It's rough.
That's really sad. That's really hurt me now. Oh man.
I know. Yeah.
Oh man. Okay, so Mortal Kombat and Metroid, nice. So I mean, again, the Game Boy is a really interesting handheld, isn't it? Because obviously a lot of people, there's the pre-Pokemon and then there's the post-Pokemon era. So, did you play Pokemon much at all? Because I would assume that might have been before it came out.
Yeah, I know. I really never got into Pokemon. The only Pokemon I've ever played is Pokemon Go, and that blew up, a few years ago. But that was kind of before my time. By the time Pokemon started coming out, I sort of moved on to other things and just never really got into that franchise at all.
Okay. So the SNES came in there. So where did you go from there, really? So it was NES, Game Boy.
A little bit of PC gaming, but my family, from the time I was super small, we've always been like Apple products. And if anyone had an Apple computer in the 90s, not very good, not very reliable, but I didn't actually own too many games. But my dad always would get this CD from, I think, Macworld probably, which had like demos of games. So I played demos of games over and over again. There was this obscure title called Weekend Warrior that was ridiculous. There was the one game that for PC that I played as a kid was Journeyman Project Turbo. I loved that game so much. I played that a lot as well.
Brilliant.
Basically, you're just like a time travel agent. You get an alert right when you get to work that day that there's been some disturbance in temporal time. And you have to go back to all these different times and spaces to try to piece together this mystery of who's trying to mess with the time space continuum, and hopefully stop them from doing whatever they're trying to do.
Wow, fair play. And demos are one of those things, aren't they? They were so important, I think, to gaming in the 90s. It's crazy. Like, the amount of times I've spoken to people on this podcast and they talk about demos. I mean, so was that feel like that gap for you at all, or was there?
And then I would say I never owned a PlayStation, but then I made a friend in the late 90s who had the PlayStation, and at the time that we became friends, he was playing a lot of RPGs like Wild Arms, Lunar 1 and 2, and that was getting me like into RPGs for the first time. And then Final Fantasy VII came out. And Final Fantasy VII, that's a delineation. My life pre-Final Fantasy VII and then after. That game just blew my mind, and suddenly, like, video games, particularly ones that are narrative storytelling, just became my bread and butter. I wanted games that told stories that like made me feel all the emotions, and that was definitely my go-to for a while there. And then I got engaged to someone who really didn't enjoy me spending time playing video games, and actually, like, I didn't play any video games or have anything for 5-10 years. And just recently, in the last 5 years, actually got back into gaming after being out of it for a long time.
Right. Okay. I mean, Fantasy VII. I mean, I'm the same. I was exactly the same. Mind blown when it came out. So yeah, tell us about that then. So I mean, spoilers, I'm sure, but I mean, like, sure. I mean, tell us about your experience with Fantasy VII then. How was that for you?
Yeah, I mean, everything from like that opening, the music is just so gorgeous. I still, to this day, when I watch people like playing the original game again, like the music just like makes me cry. And there's the characters are so unique. I mean, they're like caricatures, but they're actually like well done. I feel like, Cloud, moody, edgy, sword wielding boy, and Brock, the angry guy, the angry leader. But then Vincent Valentine, once, and I'm really actually upset about the fact that Vincent Valentine is a bonus character that you have to kind of exists and where to and how to get him in order to get him, because he's my favorite character in the whole game. And unfortunately, because he's a bonus character, he's not in any of the cutscenes, like the actual animated scenes, which really, is unfortunate because I think, again, he's one of the best characters. But I just remember that game also, like, and also with the death of Aerith halfway through the game, just what a major character, like, and also like the major love interest of the main character is you're going to kill them off by Sephiroth, who is, for me, one of the best villains in the sense that the way they introduced Sephiroth into the game, because the whole time you're like, oh, we're fighting Shinra, we're trying to protect the Earth, and then you're locked in prison, and all of a sudden there's just like blood everywhere.
Yeah.
The door is open, and you're just like walking this trail of death and destruction. And that was just like, what are we dealing with? And then you're chasing Sephiroth, and you find that giant snake that's been murdered by him, and you're just like, okay, whoever this is big deal, and I am frightened.
Yep.
And then like that one cutscene when Niflheim is like engulfed in flames, and there's Sephiroth, and he just like walks through the flames into wherever he's going. It's just like, it was so beautiful, so well done.
Oh, 100%. Wow. So many memories for me as well, and I love hearing all of it. I mean, obviously, I'm actually playing it at the moment, so it's quite fresh. But
nice.
Yeah, but oh man, it's so good. It's so good. But like you said, did you play the remake at all?
I've watched it, but I haven't owned it. I have a PlayStation 4, but like I literally haven't turned it on in like 2 or 3 years. Ever since I built this particular PC, I've been like almost exclusive PC player.
Because I mean, do you want to? I mean, we can. I don't know if you want to talk about the remake, but I mean, like you were just talking about like the Shinra building and just blood everywhere. It was again the way they did that in the remake. I was actually quite impressed with. I don't know if you've seen that. That was quite good. Yeah. And what were you going to mention? Vincent. Yeah, I was going to talk about Vincent. Because I don't even think Square realised how popular he was going to be, because obviously he was a side character, but he got his own game in the end about his popularity. So I don't know if you played that at all.
I unfortunately didn't. That was getting to be about the point that kind of got game shooed out of my life. But I mean, also I have so many vivid memories of being down in a fight. The two characters on the side die, and Vincent's got like 5 HP, but his limit breaker's on, and you're just like, okay, click that limit break. Out of your control now, whatever Vincent does.
Yeah.
That's what's happening. And then he manages to win the fight, and you're like, oh my God, I'm so glad that worked out.
Oh, epic. So do you have a Final Fantasy games? Final Fantasy 8, Final Fantasy 9? Did they come in as well?
I've played 7, 8, 15, a little bit of 14, but I don't really get into MMOs. They're not for me. I've seen like 10 parts of 13. I've seen a lot of the early titles as well. A lot of my friends are like retro streamers who love playing some of these older Final Fantasy games. Oh, I did play Mystic Quest. Somehow I got Mystic Quest, which I know there's some debate whether that's even actually a real Final Fantasy game. But I have played that one. But 7 still remains my favorite. 8, actually, as I've gotten older and watched other people replay it recently, has grown on me more. I think I was just so disappointed because it wasn't 7. Like I think it gets an unfair shake because of just trying to follow up 7. I think there's a lot of better plot going on than I gave it credit for. I think like a lot of the Laguna swing sequences are beautiful. And also I've come to understand that like the game was originally going to be 50-50 Laguna and Squall. And because of, production issues, it kind of got shrunk down to mostly Squall with a little bit of Laguna. I think it would have been a much more interesting game if Laguna's storyline had been more expanded upon. But that being said, I think it's a better game than I gave it credit for at the time. And I think a lot of people like to rag on the game more than it deserves.
I was just about to mention that as well, because, I mean, did you play it at the time, or have you played it in recent years?
No, I played it like right when it came out.
Yeah, because I think, I've said this a couple of times, I think, but yeah, people who've played it for the first time now really rag on it. Like you said, it's a real shame. But when it came out, it was actually quite good. But like you said, following in the footsteps of 7, no easy game to do.
Yeah. And I think it does make a few like mistakes narratively. I'm like a theater maker. That's kind of my background. So I've been a playwright, director, actor. So like I think in those terms sometimes. And I think, they made a few like little mistakes in the way they handled the storyline. Some of it could be translation issues. I know sometimes, particularly Final Fantasy has some localization issues where things come out weird. Like like Squall comes off just kind of aloof in a way. But I think some of that's just a translation issue. I hope. I've been told that in the Japanese version, like he's not so much of a kind of a like emo dude bro kind of guy. He doesn't come off that way anyway. So I think it had a lot of issues and was rushed. And but people love Triple Triad. Triple Triad's a really fun game in there.
That's so fun. It's so fun. Best card game in my opinion of all time.
Yeah, I mean, you can spend the entire just day playing Triple Triad.
Oh, so good, so good. I used to play it online. I used to find a website back in the early noughties that used to do it online. It was fun.
That'd be amazing.
I mean, you can do it on an app now, but an official Square Enix app. They do it now.
Yeah, and I know like Final Fantasy 14 has like a version of Triple Triad. You can play it like the Golden Saucer on the server or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So did you so you played with mostly your dad, did you say? And did you play with friends? Is there any other stories you can think of growing up? Any favorite stories?
Yeah, so my best friend growing up is the one who had the PlayStation. We played Final Fantasy VII together. Like, so many memories. We played a lot of RPGs where, even if they're like a one-player game, we would just like, I'd have plenty of enjoyment just watching him. Like, it's no surprise that I love just being on Twitch watching other people play video games, because that was my relationship to him. But he was also one of those guys who, if you're playing GoldenEye, you're fighting for second place. He's the guy. Smash Bros. I had a few friends who were really amazing at the game, but he was quite often the person to beat. He's just a fantastic gamer. So just like lots of memories playing video games with him, sometimes with our friends. Perfect Dark is another one. Like the 64, when that came out, really changed stuff as well, where suddenly, and I've never been like a first person shooter. Like, I've never loved first person shooters, but playing GoldenEye with my friends, I just lots of memories. I liked Perfect Dark better because you could do cooperative missions instead of playing against each other. And I just remember there's one particular mission where you're playing King of the Hill, but the enemies are all these little Martians that are really hard to hit because they're only like 3 feet tall. So like, you got to aim down and try to kill them, but they're really fast and they're just like flying through. Lots of memories just trying to beat that one mission over and over again. And yeah, my friend actually, he is now the world record holder for X-Men 2 Clone Wars for the Sega Genesis.
Oh, wow.
So like, he is the one who actually got me into Twitch. He was like, hey, I'm going to be speedrunning this game. And like, I knew he was like trying to get really good at this game because we played as kids. And he's like, I'm on this website, Twitch. Just make an account. It's free. You can watch me while I try to get better at this game. And that's how I got into Twitch, about 3 years ago, actually.
Wow.
And, and then he ended up getting the world record. He ended up, at the time, it was just him and a couple people who ever ran the game. The leaderboard only had like 3 names on it. And he has cultivated a huge, at least a community around it that has like helped develop the speed run. And like, he went from 26 minutes, he's now like 18 minutes and 50 seconds in this past year, because the community he developed around it, like, helped figure out how to break the game even more, essentially. So, it's no surprise, because growing up, he would sit with the game and just like figure it out and optimize everything that he did in there, which is why he was so hard in like GoldenEye, Super Smash Brothers. He would just play Link over and over again until he had every movement down to perfection. But that was like a lot of it. It was either we were playing very story-based RPG games, or we were playing all these different like GoldenEye, which is also when I saw Xenia on the top, like in that game, that was my moment where like I wanted to be her and I wanted to be with her. That was like that moment when but like it took me many years to figure stuff out for myself. But I was like, yeah, Xenia, that's who I would want to be in life.
100%. Awesome. So yeah, what are you playing right now?
Oh, I play different things. I have to play Ecco the Dolphin a lot because my community knows that I hate it and I hate dolphins, and dolphins are literally the absolute worst. And because of an incentive that I did, I actually have a dolphin tattoo. I can't show it right now. I'd have to like take off several layers of shirts and probably flash the camera. But it's this dolphin tattoo wearing BDSM gear. Because that's the only way I would put a dolphin on my body is if it was wearing BDSM gear, because that's my personality.
There we go.
I'm also speedrunning Resident Evil 7 a lot. I just recently got number 92 on the leaderboard out of hundreds of times. So I'm getting to a place in my Resident Evil 7 run where I'm having to learn like the best strategies to beat the game, as opposed to like I was doing sort of the medium difficulty ones that like they still look cool. You're still doing some cool stuff, but now it's like, no, I have to like learn the hard stuff. So I'm practicing and accidentally staying up till 4 a.m. just drilling certain parts of the game, just doing these boss fights over and over again. But yeah, I've been playing a lot of that just because I'm really passionate about the game. The one game that I have for myself, like my off-stream game, is Rocket League. Excellent. I have a lot of people being like, you should play that on stream, and I'm like, nah, it's my game to relax at the end of the night, which is weird because it's not a very relaxing game. It's like an adrenaline pumping game, but for some reason I just enjoy playing it at the end of the night.
Yeah. No, you gotta have a game.
I've recently also, like, between speedrunning stuff, but I beat Battletoads recently. I'm kind of on a list of games that just suck. Like, they're really hard. Like Battletoads. I recently beat Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures, which I played a lot as a kid actually, but I never beat it. If you've never played it, it's not a good game. Like, if you beat two worlds, like, you're like, okay, does this game like get any? Is it different at any point? No, it's just like you literally rinse and repeat over and over and over again.
Oh God!
Until finally it's just like, okay, now you're done. Now that you've like found 10 out of the 12 historical figures that you have to find in the game, like, okay, now you're done. It's a grueling game. It's so repetitive. It's literally just every level is just them reskinning almost the exact same like level design. It's really just a boring, terrible game. But I played it a lot as a kid for some reason.
What is it then that makes you play these games, like these either really difficult or these not so good games, shall we say? Is there anything that makes you think about playing them?
I think part of it is that there is an enjoyment of my community watching me hate these games. And like, for example, when I played Ecco the Dolphin, I played Ecco, I played Ecco 2 Tides of Time, I played Ecco Junior. And Ecco Junior was the least garbage game of the three, so that's the one I like the best. I mean, it's literally a kid's game. You can't die, you can't get hurt. It's just like 8 levels of solving these very basic puzzles to get to the next level. And it is actually a game like I could see myself just playing to relax at the end of the night, as opposed to the first two games that are just so, from level design to translation issues to controls that I felt were just super sloppy and terrible. I did not enjoy a single moment of the actual games. However, I did enjoy the sort of energy it created in my community, where we are laughing at the fact that I am struggling so hard in these games. There was this in the first game. There's what's called there's a section where you have to do a super jump, where you just jump out of the water, and you sort of have, you can jump out of the water and jump pretty high, but you have to like, and everything I've read about it, I was so stuck on it for a while that I looked at a guide online, and it literally said, if this is your first time playing this game, you are going to hate this section. You are going to hate it. That's all it said, is like, there's no trick to it. It's kind of RNG on when you actually do the super jump. And then you just gotta make it work. And so like, I was doing this for hours upon hours, and then like I paused. I even like took a break, and when I came back, I like unpaused and I was talking to Chad about something, and just kind of like casually jumping out of the water, not even trying, and I did it, and I jumped over this huge wall and landed on the other side. I'm like, what the was that? What was? Or this other part in the first Ecco game, I got through. There's only like 2 or 3 boss fights in the first Ecco game. I got through the first one, and it took me a while because there's like the game doesn't explain what you have to do to kill the boss. It's just so not intuitive, which is one of my problems with the game. I finally beat it, and then I go to, because I was playing on the official Sega sort of emulator that you can buy on Steam. It wasn't an illegal emulator. I was playing the actual Sega licensed emulator. So I was going to save, and I accidentally loaded 2 save states previous,
Oh no!
so like 2 levels ago, and I let out this most blood-curdling no that I had to turn into a sound alert because my community just is like, they love it. And also when I beat the first Ecco, I yelled like G, and that was so popular that I also had to turn that into a sound command as well, because people are just like, from like the absolute like crushing defeat to like, this is what pure unbridled joy of victory sounds like. And now like whenever I beat Pete thing, my chat goes G, F, and G like over and over again. Like that's the chant they do. So
Fantastic.
It's caught on.
Oh man.
Yeah. And also like with Ecco, as much as I hated the games, it was kind of like a watershed moment for me in my streaming career, where just like it galvanized people. And like I literally, in terms of streamers that I know and I'm on good terms with, I cannot go into a single stream on Twitch where they don't bring up dolphins. Yeah. Every time I enter a new chat, someone's like, "Oh, Erica's here, dolphins." I'm like, great. There was a time period where people were DMing me GIFs of dolphins trying to have, physical relations with humans. I would get these every day, at least 1 or 2. It was just wild. Okay. There's also some really bizarre dolphin GIFs out there. Please don't search heavily dolphin GIFs, because there's some very disturbing things out there.
Don't do it. Oh man, yeah. That's what I was about to say. Was that's how I found you. Was I can't remember who it was of my side, but someone I was affiliated with raided you, and you were playing Ecco. And I found you were so funny. Just your hatred for Ecco the Dolphin is just your humor with it. It's just it's brilliant. So.
When it started as an inside joke, my friend that I mentioned earlier, he played Ecco a couple years ago, and I'm in his chat, and out of just, I don't know, boredom or whatever, I took the anti-dolphin stance just for giggles. And it was just like, so every time he died in the game, I'm like, yes, one less dolphin in this world. Huzzah! But it became a thing where just like in his community, people, even long after he was done with the Ecco game, like people would still like talk about how much I hated dolphins. And he and I share a moderator, and that moderator a few months ago started bringing Ecco up and my hatred of dolphins in my own chat, and people like started clinging on to that. Well, first off, it's like, why, Erica? Why do you hate dolphins so much? And I'm like, well, they're actually not very good. Like as creatures, they're not very moral. They thrust upon anyone or anything that they can. Doesn't matter your species type or anything. They're just kind of, they're just terrible creatures. And all things aside, just there's no reason to like them. I know they're cute and whatever, but that's just a lie. They're there, but. That hype around my hatred of dolphins built, and then I was like, well, capitalism. I'm going to try to pick up on this, where I've just made like a fundraising incentive, for donations or sub goals or whatever, and my community very quickly nailed that out of the park. So first it was like I just had to play Ecco for like a stream. And then they crushed that goal. Then it was like, I have to finish Ecco. They crushed that goal. And they just, every goal I set around Ecco the Dolphin, then it was like, oh, well, now I have to play the second one. Crush that goal. All right, now I have to play the whole trilogy. Crush that goal. I have to get a BDSM dolphin tattoo. Crush that goal. I have to learn the speed runs for 1 and 2. Crush that goal. So yeah, it's just a game that for whatever reason my community just really blew up on, and just again, my reputation across the platform is growing because people are associating me with my hatred of dolphins.
Yeah. I was gonna say it might be on like many moons from now, obviously on your gravestone, something about Ecco the Dolphin.
I have a dolphin tattoo permanently on my body, so I just gotta like look on my back shoulder and be like, oh,
yeah,
that game did this to me.
Right, let's go back one step though. Let's talk about Resident Evil and Resident Evil 7. So, you speedrunning Resident Evil 7. Did you play Resident Evil 2 remake, Resident Evil 3 remake, Resident Evil 8? Where are you with those?
So I'll just quickly describe my relationship to the entire series. Is that I played 7 first, and that was like that was a charity incentive from back in February. That I'd play Resident Evil 7 because a lot of people were like, we want to see you play that game. So I played it in April finally, and I actually loved it. I played through it, and I'm like, you know what? I want to like go through and get all the achievement. I want to achievement hunt. So we're gonna keep playing this game for a couple weeks. I'm just gonna achievement hunt. I'm gonna beat it on every level of difficulty. I'm just any achievement I know of, I'm gonna do it. And in doing that, I got my time down to like just over 2 hours. And I'm like, I'm really close to just like getting in. Like that put me in the near almost breaking the top 300. Yeah. I was like, well, I'm just gonna like research the speed run for it, and I started doing like some of the most basic of things, and my time kept like just doing down, and finally I was just hooked on it. And then so that was in April, which then 8 came out in May. So I was like, sure, I'll play 8 the weekend it comes out, and I was doing a fundraiser for that, so it was like kind of one of the games I played 8. I beat it pretty quickly actually. Maybe in 2 streams. It was 2 streams. And then I had the rest of this charity weekend to do. So I was like, well, I'm going to go back to 7 and I'll play on Madhouse, the highest difficulty and if you don't, for every $20 worth of donations, I will play with just a knife for a minute per every $20.
Excellent.
And so I'd get to boss fights and my community would just like lay down $200. So for like the next 10 minutes, I'm trying to beat this boss with just a knife. And there are strats for that, but I didn't really know them, nor had I practiced them. So it was just like 10 minutes of me getting my butt kicked. But my community was really good about like, okay, this was funny, but we're not going to donate so you can beat this boss. And then come the next boss, they'll unload some more donos on me, watch me struggle for a while, and then let me beat it. So that was 8, and then 8 and 7. And then I decided, well, you know what? I really love this franchise. I'm going to go back and play the rest of them. I started with the remake of 2, and then I did 1, the remaster of 1. Mm-hmm. I own 3 through 5, but I haven't played them yet because then I got occupied with Echo, and I'm also just really focused on 7. But I do plan to play 3 through 6 at some point for sure.
Mm-hmm. Wow, yeah, because I played, in the order it came out, so 7, then 2, then 3, then 8, as in 2 and 3 remake. And the reason why I brought that up is because I then went back to 7 before 8 came out, and it's so weird playing the controls again for that, because it's a lot more rigid, because you're playing Ethan, who's not like a police officer or anything like that. So they've made it intentionally like you're playing as like some dude, in a very, very dangerous house, so we say, so that's why I was bringing it up. But I mean, you're flying through it. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like playing the first Resident Evil game, those controls were so awful to me. I'm just like, the camera angles are terrible. Like, because those are fixed camera angles for like every scene. It's just, that was really difficult for me, as opposed to like 2, the controls get a little bit better, and then 8 was more like 7.
Yeah.
But the thing about 8 that's fascinating is like it's kind of 4 or 5 different games in one, really.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like the beginning as Ethan running through the village is one particular game where the first time you're playing it, it's such a like where do I go next? Oh my God, there's so many werewolves. I barely have any ammo. I mean, that feels. It's like an adrenaline rush. And then you get to Lady D's castle, and that feels more like Resident Evil, where it's like it's this big open map. You're trying to unlock new areas of it. There's puzzles, da 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 da.
Yeah.
But that actually lasted very, like, I was surprised at how much hype was built around that character and her daughters and everything. Like, that was a pretty short part of the game. Then you get to the doll maker's house, and that was like, that actually was my favorite part of the game, honestly, because it was like and I was someone who hated horror games until I became a horror streamer. A little over a year ago on my channel, I made the conscious choice. You know what? I'm just going to play horror games for a while, and it was, and the doll maker's house was like, oh yeah, this is like the horror that I'm used to, like with Visage or some of these other titles.
Yeah.
And then you get to Morneau's, and that section is always kind of disappointing to me. I don't know. It feels very hallway-esque. It's just like you just kind of keep going forward and finding the next way to move forward, and I don't know. It just didn't do much for me. And then you get to Heisenberg's factory, where it's like, this feels like Doom. This feels more like a Doom game. And then you get to be, you become Chris near the end, and it's like, this is Call of Duty. Like, suddenly you're in Call of Duty. You got all these amazing weapons, and just it's Call of Duty. So it's just, 8 was a very different experience for me. I think in a lot of ways it's brilliant. I love the way they tied the lore of 7 and 8 back into the whole franchise. That was unexpected and really cool, but for some reason it didn't speak to me the way 7 did. So I always tell people, like, I liked 8. It for me, 7, this is what it is. 7 feels like the entire game feels like the same world. And like what I described with 8 feels like, again, 4 or 5 different games crammed into one. It is very enjoyable, each section, but I prefer like a game where it all feels like it's the same world. Same with like Resident Evil 2, which covers a huge world map when you think about it. Even once you're in different areas of the police station, Umbrella, the sewers underneath the city, it still somewhat, to me, feels like all the same world, as opposed to 8, where it just felt very, very different worlds crammed together in one game.
Yeah, 100%. So if you had to choose one game, what would be your favorite video game of all time, and why?
Oh, that's questions. I would probably Resident Evil 7.
Yeah. Probably.
It's just because, like, at this point, I know that game on like a pixel level. I know, I love to watch other people playing 7 for the first time.
Yeah.
Mostly because I get to see parts of the game that I never get to see, because I speedrun it and I'm skipping as much of the game as possible. So I enjoy watching other people play it. But when I watch others play it, I'm reminded of, like, I know where every item in that game is. I know that, like, this box is RNG based. It could be health in there, but it might be ammo. It might be this. But I know every time there's a health in this box or in this area or like, I just know the game so incredibly well at this point. Even if I'm not like top 20 speedrunner of the game, I still know it incredibly well. And for that, like, it's hard to go with any other game. I mean, Rocket League is in there just because I played so much, but like, and then Final Fantasy VII means so much to me as well. That's in the conversation. When it comes to horror games, Alien Isolation is in the conversation. That's such a brilliantly designed game. But I feel like Resident Evil 7, because of how well I know the game, and I've now literally played it at least 100 times, if not more, has got to be the favorite at this point.
Yeah. So I think you kind of talked about achievements before, but is that something that you do a lot with games? Do you like to try platinum / 100% a game? Is that something that happens a lot?
No, usually I don't. Usually I don't care about doing like a hundo run or whatever. I'm not one of those people who like, well, I didn't explore every nook and cranny of this game. I don't know what it is, why 7 made me feel that way, but it did. Red Dead Redemption 2 is another game that I loved a lot, and I'm interested in replaying it again. And spending a little bit more time with it. Because I was streaming it as well. I play games for the story. So when I'm playing it, I'm looking to jump to the next plot point, to the next plot point, to the next plot point. I'm about just like finding every little piece of paper. Even though I know that they can contain lore, I always feel like if a game is hiding the lore and you have to find it to understand the game, I get disappointed by that. Honestly, like I don't like Dark Souls is a good example. I've never played Dark Souls, but I've watched a lot of people play that series, and they're always like, I'm just like, I don't see a story, and people are like, well, you have to like, there's a ton of lore, you just have to kind of like go searching for. I'm like, I don't want to search for the lore. I want to be like, I want to experience the lore through a really intriguing plot. You know, and I feel like the Resident Evil 7 series has a good blend. You know, the first couple of Resident Evil games, especially like the first Resident Evil game, you know, there's a plot, and then the more you explore and everything and read journals, you get a ton more information, and that's cool. But there's still like a plot that you experience if you were to ignore all other information out there. So that's really like what I'm looking for in games, I think.
Yeah. So what made you? You kind of talked about what made you think about streaming. It was your friend. So do you remember what your first stream was like?
Yeah. So originally, I didn't want to become a streamer. I was the first year on Twitch. I didn't even like watch other streamers except for one other person, and I became a mod for her. But other than these two streams, I wasn't like finding new streams, whatever. But then my best friend rated someone, Coco Confession, and it was her community that just like blew up my mind of like, whoa, this is what a streaming community can be like. This is like, you know, very quickly I became someone who like, you know, it was an event every stream. People were like happy to see me. People knew who I was. I liked making jokes in chat and people making jokes back. And, you know, suddenly a stream felt like, oh, this could be like, you can community build. Cause like my best friend, he's not interested in like becoming a professional streamer. He has a very lovely real day job, and streaming is just something he does to have community with people while he does what he does, speedrunning. But this was like someone who was like a professional speedrunner. This was her full-time job, and seeing what she did there made me want to do it. And at first, because I didn't have any of this PC setup, I had a MacBook Pro and an iPad. I was an art streamer at first. I just did art for the first 6 months. And that was, you know, a learning experience, quite honestly. Like, I wasn't getting a lot of growth at all. It was very slow. You know, I'd be sometimes streaming to like 0 or 1 person. And, you know, there's a lot of fun to be had. My oldest moderator was there from the very beginning. That's the one who I share with my best friend. And he was there, and would have some laughs, and maybe he like suggest me to do some funky drawings that were hilarious, and that was great. But then there came a time where I was like, you know what? Like, I did a fundraiser called the Game On to End Lupus back in 2020. That this Coco Confession she organized, and it was after that I was like, I really enjoyed that because I was getting like big raids from big streamers who were in this fundraiser. Because I my very first stream of that was a 24-hour stream. So like at the end of the night, a lot of big streams, like I was the only person on the team still streaming. So I got all these big raids, and it was fun and exciting, and I loved the energy. It's because I'm a theater performer. I love having people and getting to entertain them. And that was the experience where I'm like, I want to do this. Like, I want to actually pursue this. And then, you know, after the next month or two, my numbers were dwindling back down to like where they were. And I'm like, art, like, if I want to do this in any type of meaningful way, I got to change what I'm doing. And I had just built this PC. Like I said, I was an Apple person my entire life, but this was my first PC I actually built, you know, with the help of some friends to figure out what parts I need and all that type of stuff and how to assemble it. And once I had built this PC and it opened up PC gaming, I was just like, the world exploded. And, you know, I was like, you know what, I'm going to jump into horror streaming. So August of 2020, Alien Isolation, my first horror stream. And it was a blast. Like, people just, you know, with scare alerts on and all this stuff, my revenue blew up from all these scare alerts, and people were having a good time coming to see me get scared. And then the next game was like Outlast and Visage and Blair Witch and all these things. And it's just like, things just started happening real fast after that, where I was starting to see some really solid growth, and starting to be like, okay, this is it. And I decided at the end of 2020 to go full time with this and just see if I can make it work or not. So I've almost been doing this full time for a year now.
Wonderful. That's amazing. And it's good to hear as well. You mentioned it a couple of times about fundraising, Tell us about that then. So what are the fundraising, who you fundraised for, and tell us about some of the memories, along Soda, because it's always great to hear about stories about fundraising. So.
Yeah, I've done the Game On to End Lupus. It's happened for 2 years, and both years I've been on that team. This past year, the first year we had maybe, I'm trying to think accurate numbers, 30 to 40 streamers, maybe it got up to 50, and we raised like $55,000, somewhere in that ballpark. This past year we had like 100 streamers when it was all said and done, and we raised over, I don't know the final amount, but it was over $125,000 in a weekend.
That's amazing.
And I was like, I think I was in top 7, which like some of the streamers below me had huge communities. So like me and my little dinky community outraised some pretty big names that were on the teams. And that was just like, because like Coco and one of my best friends I've made on the platform, 8-Bit D, they both have lupus. Sorry, hold on, I'm going to mute for a second.
No worries.
Anyway, Coco and 8-Bit D both have lupus. And I know I've made some other streamer friends from the Game On to End Lupus campaign who have lupus. And so it's become a lot personal because like this is me supporting my friends. So any money I've raised for that foundation, it's benefiting the Lupus Foundation of America, which, does research, advocacy work, all this type of stuff. Just a great organization. And I've gotten to meet like electronically some of the heads and organizers from the Lupus Foundation of America. They're all just great people over there. So doing that was just a huge honor for me. This year, my community raised just under $3,000. And then earlier in the year, in February, I did a fundraiser for Trans Lifeline, which is a hotline primarily in Canada and the US for trans folks. You can call it any time of day. And it gives all sorts of resources. Like someone could call in the US from anywhere, and they will help you with, first off, whatever emotional situation you're going through. And then they can also help you find resources in your local area, because especially I grew up in a very rural part of the US, and the resources that I have now living in a major city, those don't exist, in the small towns of America. So, but they can help you find the closest ones because they do exist, but it can be difficult to find. It can also be scary to like know who to trust. And this Trans Lifeline can be like, no, this is a good organization, whether it's the nearest Planned Parenthood or I go to an LGBTQIA clinic here in the Minneapolis that this is a clinic dedicated to, the queer population and trans population. So I've been very fortunate. And the clinic I go to actually serves like a 5-state area where people from hundreds upon hundreds of miles come, because it's the closest place to like get, medical help, especially if you're trans, can be very difficult. So we raised in the ballpark of $2,500 back in February for them. So on the total, my community has raised about $5,000 for the year for charity. And, that is really, I say this to people all the time. I'm interested in growing my community, mostly so that I can use my platform for others, for fundraising, for supporting other people, for helping other, I'm always of those personalities of, I believe in having mentors above, and I believe in finding mentees below. And people were very kind to me when I started out and held out a hand. So I believe very firmly that I owe it to pay it forward to others. What was freely given to me sometimes.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Love it. Yeah, wow. I just love hearing about fundraising. I do a bit myself, but the numbers you mentioned are just absolutely amazing to hear. I love hearing about it. So, yeah, what advice would you think about giving someone who's thinking about streaming? What advice would you give to anyone thinking about doing such a crazy thing that we do?
Right. There's like different spheres of what to think about. In terms of the technical, I would focus first on your audio. Whatever there's some really affordable options for like microphones, and like my microphone quality from my first streams, like this is a very nice microphone, but it took me a while to get here. It wasn't something I just invested in immediately, but I do think investing in audio before visual is really important. That aside, thinking about the technical aspects, I do think then finding your own brand, like it's what I see, and like when I have conversations with other streamers who are like, how do I do what you've done? Which like I haven't done that much, but it's a struggle just getting 10 viewers, 15 viewers, 20 like these are struggles.
Yeah.
And I've surpassed some of those. So it's like people come to me like, how do I at least do that? And it's like, and I see them trying to replicate what they see other streamers doing. And in a way, like you have to be aware of what other streamers are doing. However, you have to find what fits you and your personality. Just because a game is popular doesn't mean it's going to be popular with you. Mm-hmm. Like for me, example, I know in my experience, there's been games that I've played that like, even games I've loved, but I've hated streaming it. Even if I'm enjoying the game while streaming it, it just doesn't fit right with my community, where like I can't maybe talk to my community as much as I would like to, like I normally do, or maybe just like, it's just, there's a weird vibe that's off. Or I see someone, the best example of like is seeing something like someone plays a joke game like Goat Simulator that exists, and someone else sees that and be like, oh, they got a huge views out of that game. I'm going to play that game, but this person over here got it because they hate goats and their community knows they hate goats. So when they do it, it's funny and people love to like sort of torture them with the game, as opposed to you have no fear of goats. It's just a game to you. So like you have to like reach in deep and experiment, try new things. Don't be afraid to like, I've seen people who play Apex for like 2 years and then wonder why their growth doesn't go anywhere. It's like, experiment. Don't just stick to one thing and try some different things, just because you love Apex doesn't mean, maybe if you're interested in growth, at least if you're interested in growth, maybe that's not the game you're going to grow with. Try something different and give it a little bit of time. Like I know some other people like, oh, I did a stream of Hades and I didn't see numbers boost. Well, give it a few streams, like give it a week, give it 2 weeks, just try. And learn what, like the hard part is learn for yourself, like what is working for you and your community, and like what is your brand, what do you offer. So I went to clown school and we studied vaudeville, and in vaudeville we were challenged to, this was the assignment we had once, create a piece which only you can do. So then you have to ask yourself, well, what skills do I have that only I can do? Like, when I did this vaudeville bit, it's like, well, I can play a lot of instruments. I mean, I'm not like a virtuoso, but I am very competent on a lot of musical instruments. I play a lot of instruments. And I was like, well, let me just, I want to try to play 2 instruments at the same time. And I got with some other people who they wanted to do like a musical skit. So basically I had this little baritone horn and my acoustic guitar in one hand on an open tuning. And I was just like, we created this opera that was a play off of the Godfather theme, like that. And I was playing on the baritone and then doing this like finger picking thing. And they spun this huge operatic piece about how poor they were. They were using some Italian, some Spanish, some pig Latin, then some just gibberish words for singing. And they had like, we were just in all this garbage, and they were pulling out like dead plants and eggs. There's an egg. Oh my God, we could eat this egg, and they crack it, and there's nothing inside of it, and they're just like, and it just builds to this climax where like they pull out a stick of dynamite and they light a match, and they're about to light the stick of dynamite, but right before the flame touches the wick, I just played that theme, and it like blows the match out before it lit the dynamite. And they put their hands down, and then they like all of a sudden get this courage that they want to live, and they go on this final thing, and it was brilliant. It was this brilliant little piece that we had created that people like still they talked about for years, and that was because we were a group of people who created a piece that only we could do using and that's what like streaming should be. Yes. I come at streaming like a very performative aspect. When I'm thinking about the stream before and after, I'm a director / playwright deciding the content. And then when I'm in it as a performer, and I'm in it, I'm thinking of it like an actor. I'm like energy and, pacing, and also changes in rhythm, like to keep it I don't want to be just like screaming for 8 hours, but I don't want to be like chill for 8 hours either. Like, these are all the things I think about anyway as a streamer. Yeah. I know not everybody thinks that way, but
no, it's always good to hear different ways of looking at it. And that's brilliant. It's a really different way of looking at it. I like it. Yeah, we're almost done. I mean, one final question, really. I was going to mention, which I forgot to mention earlier, which was if you were stuck on a remote island and you could only have 3 games, and you can have online connectivity on this island if you want, what would those 3 games be? You're going to be spending the rest of your life on the island. What would they be, and why?
All right. Well, I would have to go probably with Rocket League, Resident Evil 7, and for the third one, I'd want the OG Final Fantasy VII, where that would be my game like on a yearly basis around probably what would be holidays time on this desert island. I would have this traditional playthrough of Final Fantasy VII.
That's a great.
But Rocket League would be my playthrough game just for fun, and then Resident Evil 7 would be like, this is the game I'm continuing just to try to get better at every day.
Brilliant.
It's like my Zen masterpiece game of just like every day just do better than the previous.
Thing is, though, I've asked this question a lot to different people, and I think I like your island the most. I love all 3 of those games. Yeah. It's a great set of games, to be fair. Erica, that was brilliant. Thank you so much. Just one final time, then, if you would like to promote your socials, please check Erica out. She's wonderful. Fire away.
Yeah, EricaNewGirl, pretty much on any social media platform that I exist on. I stream 2:30 on Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays, which is Central Time here in the States. So you'll have to do the math wherever you are, but that's pretty much where you can find me.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Right, that's it then. So until the next episode, guys, I'll catch you on the flip. Take care. Bye-bye.